Namaste, Professor. In this episode, we'll discuss a bit of geopolitics. Uh, Now, with the war, it's very evident that Russia has become a smaller economic partner of China. So, will this embolden China, and what do you think are the implications for the USA and India?
Okay, a good observation. You see, Russia is no more a major superpower in the sense of the term. If you categorize countries on purchasing power parity, today, purchasing power parity is adjusting the GDP for the purchasing power of country. PPP, it is called. IMF releases the data very regularly. The reason is that different countries have different type of purchasing power. You can't directly compare the national income or GDP of the countries. For instance, my niece who works in California, she earned some 50,000 US dollar. I earn here some 50,000 Indian rupee. Both are 50,000, but they are not easily comparable. You can't say both of us are in the same position. Different type of purchasing power. For instance, I can get a made in Bangalore for something like 5,000 to 6,000 rupees per month for doing all the vessels and cleaning the rooms and all these things. There she has to pay per hour something like 50 US dollar per hour. And mostly these are migrant laborers from other places like Mexico and other. So 50 US dollar at 80 rupees, approximately I'm telling, it will be something like 4,000 per hour. What I pay here per month. So the purchasing power is not easily comparable. So, and similarly, the other side, goods and services, she is better off. She spends on, say, provisions and milk and vegetables and all these things put together, not more than 15% of her pay. Here in India, it is roughly 50 to 60% of middle class income goes in all these things. Food, then your vegetables, milk and rental and other things. So the differences are there in purchasing power, and this is adjusted in order to make comparisons possible. And this based comparison, China is number 1 in the world today. US is number 2, India is number 3, Japan is number 4. These are the top 4 countries which one should be looking at in the current world situation. In the nominal, without even adjusting for it, US is number 1, China is number 2, and India is 5 or 6 in that range. Sometime more than Britain, sometime up plus and minus. We are roughly 3 trillion in GDP, and remember, China is something like 18 trillion. We are nowhere near China. Even though we talk as if we are equal, we are not. Let's be very clear about it. China is the single superpower today, a major superpower, because the axis of economic power has shifted to Asia. Asia means predominantly China. And in another 5 to 10 years, I am forecasting, or I am telling you, it will be the single superpower. US is on a decline. And soon, in nominal term also, China will overtake US. China is having 50% of the global production in the world today. More than 50. So it's a huge powerhouse. You cannot, and it is the largest trading partner with US as well as even with India. Some of our important nuclear parts come from China. So it's a very major force to reckon with. Russia is relatively very, very small nowadays, and also demographically shrinking. What I mean is, if there are 100 Russians today, by 2000, another 5-6 years, let's say 2030, there will be 85 Russians only. So 15% reduction. I'm not talking about growth rate of population. I'm talking about absolute reduction in the number. Similar to Japan. Japan conducts what is called this census. Every census, they announce that our population have reduced by 5 lakh, 4 lakh, like that. So this is, Japan also is not very enthusiastic about migration. It doesn't want to encourage people to migrate. and their women are nowadays getting married at 30 only. And if you get married at 30, probability of getting a large number of children is very less. You may have some one child or something like that. Because the ideal marriage age for women, don't throw stones at me, is between 18 and say 22. That's in which wherein you would like to get a number of children. So the growth rate is very, very low in these countries. And Russia is facing a very, very similar problem like that of Japan. Okay. So Russia is not of course, it's a very major nuclear power. It has got huge amount of armaments and other things. On that, nobody can have a dispute. And it has also got huge amount of gas and oil resources because of its proximity to the northern hemisphere. So, but China is treated as a brother by Russia. India is a friend. That's what happened in 1962 when there was a border, dispute between us. Russia told there is an issue between brother and a friend, so we have to very tactfully solve this and other thing. So that is the position. And as far as this, you were mentioning about this war also, right? Yeah. Come back on that. Something you are
So because of the war, now Russia has become like a junior partner of China. So will this boost China's power?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. You see, the war in Ukraine, you should be very, very clear about it. It's not between Ukraine and Russia.
Okay.
Or Russia and it's primarily with a large number of mercenaries in Ukraine and Russia.
Okay.
Imported fighters. You see, they are called guest fighter. Day before yesterday, there was a news report in Air France. This French television, where they say one of the person from France, guest fighter they call him. What rubbish it is. He is a mercenary actually. Certain amount of, you see this West, we have to be very careful about terminology. When they like something, they would use a different terminology. When they don't like something, they would. So a large number of people from other countries, France, US, UK, many retired military people and others have gone into Ukraine for payment. Actually, there was a news report, one stupid fellow from our India also, Coimbatore, he went to fight. And I think he ran back or something. Anyhow, some amount of money is given in case you fight per month. And if you die, so much lump sum is given to your family. And so they are the ones who are fighting the Russians. This is just what you may loosely call a rehearsal. West want to see how much the Russian can withstand this. You see, West itself is a declining power. They are not such major anymore. They realize it. As an example, I will tell you, in 1990, the G7 had 52% of the global GDP. 52% in 1990. Not very much backward. You might not have been born that time anyhow. Now, in 2021, if you look at, their share in the global GDP is only 33%. Such a fall between 1990 and now. The emerging markets, four of them, India, China, Brazil, and Indonesia, in terms of population, they have now, that time they had something like 33%. Now they have 53% of the share of world global GDP. So the whole situation has altered. Many people don't want to recognize this. It doesn't matter. It's a fact. So this is what is taking place. So they are sort of trying to find out how much Russia can withstand the pressure. And it's in a relatively weak position. It's not in the position of China, actually. They dare not play this game with China. China, there's another thing. They're instigating India. You go. And so they are using India as a cannon fodder to fight their battle. So that's a separate thing. But Russia need not be significantly worried about this particular Ukrainian thing. I think it will die down by itself. Right? Yeah.
So, Professor, how do you think this equation between Russia and China will impact India and the US in the long term?
Definitely, there is no equation between Russia and China is nothing new. They have
Right.
been sort of brothers for a long time, except for a minor skirmish which took place in the 90s between the two countries actually. But otherwise, they have always been with each other only. And US is, of course, not favorably disposed to them. And US want India to take side. That is the major thing. India
Correct.
says, why should we take side? We will be on our side only. That means India side. And I think recently there were some interviews of our foreign minister. Some foreign correspondent questioning, why are you sitting on the fence? He says, I'm not sitting on the fence. I'm very much sitting on the floor only. You are assuming. And he made a very interesting observation. He told, you want Europe problem to be taken as global problem, but you don't recognize global problems are also Europe problem. So
Yes.
that you don't want to recognize. So I am very happy about our foreign minister, because after a long, long time, we have a foreign minister who speaks, what it means to be spoken, instead of, wishy-washy or circumlocution and other thing. Is good actually. So the China and Russia relationship is well known. Now, only thing is India has to decide.
Correct.
When we discuss China in the next part, we will discuss it in a much more detailed fashion, right?
Sure. Sure. And Professor, recently US offered India a $5 billion military assistance to warn India of the Russian weapon supply. India's defense budget is itself already 76 billion plus. So do you think this 500 million is worth anything
No, no,
materially or symbolically?
it won't impact at all. See, India has got significant amount of reliance on Russia in terms of defense purchase and other thing for a long period of time. For instance, that cryogenic engine, suddenly US told we will not supply to you. And anybody supplying to you, we will not allow. That time the person who led the thing is very interestingly the Joe Biden. He was the senator and he was very active in denying India that. But anyhow, over a period of time, we have developed our own cryogenic. US is not a very dependable military supplier. For that matter, it's not even a dependable ally. Sometime it will be with you, sometimes suddenly it will. For instance, recently they told Saudi Arabia has to pay the price, and that murder of that Khashoggi, one fellow who was supposed to have been murdered on the instruction of the head of the Saudi Arabian state. And then these people told we will not allow Saudi Arabia in any global forum. It has to pay its price. And this is Biden. And now he is going to Saudi Arabia. And, for US interest is the dominant. Let's be very clear. Every country is like that. US is also
Correct.
like that. US is not interested about India's interest or, China's interest or anybody's interest for that matter. Its interest is the primary interest. As long as it is served, fine. For instance, they funneled so much money and arms into Afghanistan to fight Russians. After
Right.
fighting Russians, they were fighting these people for some time, and then they quietly left. That's all. They have handed over the country to Taliban. So US is not, and their arms supply, what they are suggesting is a minuscule thing. And today India is literally in a good position because we are exporting small arms to many countries actually. Not
Right.
many people know. 30, 35, more than that, I think. I don't know the exact number. Countries we are supplying arms today. We will become in the next 10 years one of the largest arms exporters. We have, getting hands on into our defense production, and that is getting restructured and reorganized. So much amount of even private people are encouraged to enter into the defense field. That's one of the interesting field for us. So I don't think this will have a very severe type of an impact.
Okay, Professor. And Professor, the Russian invasion may result in a multipolar world order. So does this mean that if these assumptions are correct, do you think the Western sanctions in the
No,
future will
see, the
be
Russia wants to. It's a very simple. You don't build these type of fences around Russia.
right?
They told that Ukraine may join NATO, and they want to include. You can't keep nuclear weapon next to Russia and then ask Russia to keep quiet. I do not know whether you recall Cuban missile crisis, when Russia wanted to keep some missiles in Cuba. US made such a big issue of it during the Kennedy regime, and then the US told that we will retaliate and all the things. So no country wants to have some this type of activity adjacent to it any point of time. So Russia felt it is being threatened, which I would say justifiably so. You cannot expand NATO to Russia's border and all this. The same way China today is feeling that the Squad and other thing is trying to encircle China. So that's not also a desirable thing for the Chinese actually. So Russians genuinely felt that this is not a acceptable thing, and so they told Ukraine that you have to back off. Otherwise, we will have to treat you in the way in which you understand. That's what happened in the thing. So it's a in today's world, you cannot simply try to encircle a country and then or bully them or threaten them another thing. And this multipolar thing is all to some extent exaggerated. Primarily, US thinks it is its terrain and except Europe is not 100% with US these days. Europe wants to take care of its own interest. Europe wants to buy gas from Russia. It is still buying actually. Oil it is not buying. It's something peculiar. India buys oil from Russia, US and Europe are upset. But Europe buys gas from Russia, that's okay or what? I don't understand at all this whole peculiar type of logic. Gas as well as oil, both are energy sources. We will buy gas, don't criticize us another. All this is every country anyhow takes care of its own interest nowadays. They put a list of goods which should not be sent to Russia. And Italy removed Gussi and all these things. Those luxury items. They told, no, don't include them. We will continue to. So there is no unipolar or US still thinks that. Even Britain thinks it is still ruling the world. What do you think?
Okay.
Think of, Britain, which is the sick child of Europe. It's having its own massive problem. And
Correct.
it thinks and it gives advice to India. It gives advice to other. If that fellow, what is it, Boris Johnson, if he flies to Ukraine, he flies here, he flies there. Nothing, these are all waste of activity. Like our Imran Khan used to think, he is the head of the global Islamic group. He used to go to Saudi Arabia, shake hand, he used to go to, nothing came out of it actually. Finally, he was thrown out, poor fellow. So this is this US still think that it is the dominant, but people are not listening to US anymore as it used to be in the 70s and 80s. It's not that type of a major power or anything. And for instance, Iraq, they told Iraq has got huge amount of chemical weapons, we should invade. And they built up a scenario. All New York Times, Washington Post, everybody told it's a Dharam Yudh type of a thing. Finally, that Saddam Hussein was thrown out. They couldn't find even one bottle of hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid, leave alone any chemical weapon. All this, they got exposed completely actually. And they have created, what have they created? A messy situation. Iraq is full of chaos today. There is no proper government. So there is, they get into a place, create chaos, create disorder, and quietly withdraw. That's all they do. So there is, you name one country where US has entered and created order and established some proper situation. No.
Right. That's very true, Professor. Now, moving on to Sri Lanka, what we have been reading in the news is that they are in a terrible debt crisis to the extent where their inflation is in double digits. So what do you think exactly happened there, Professor? Is it because of internal mismanagement or because of the Chinese debt trap?
Yeah, Sri Lanka is a classic example of what is called over leverage. See, whether it is an individual or a family or a company or a state or a country, leverage is extremely important. Leverage is, in the financial jargon, debt equity mix. How much is borrowed money? How much is owned money? A large amount of borrowed money means you are highly levered. Okay. Of course, in a very light-hearted fashion, they say be careful about 3L, which can bring down your entire empire, whether it is a family, whether it is a company, or what are the 3L? Ladies, liquor, and leverage. So these are the three which can create chaos for you. And in a very light-hearted way, it is told. What it means is you should be alert. Any one of them can pull you down. Now, these countries, I do not know. I was there. I have been there very often, actually. But a number of years before, I asked a question. They showed me, sir, this road is constructed by China. You see how beautiful it is. This is done by, they were very happy about it. I was also happy. The roads are good, mean good only. But I asked them, who is going to pay for all these things? They told that is 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and China is very, very considerate. I just smiled. I told, nobody will invest anywhere in the world today without expecting any return out of it. Why would? It's not 100% charity or anything, right? Anyhow, they have come to a difficult situation. They have, it's a over leverage is something like stretching your leg. How much you can stretch your leg? If you stretch beyond a point, your pant will be torn, right? Or you may get, some hurt in the knuckle. That type of a thing only will happen. So that is what is happening. If you have a same thing, Nepal is facing many other smaller, because what has happened is indiscriminately they have gone in for projects. China have been very happy. In some places, China has acquired the place itself. Some African countries, some projects, if they have not been able to replace, China has acquired the project itself. In other words, they have created a small niche territory in those countries for themselves. So Sri Lanka has not been able to meet its obligation, which was expected. And coupled with that, a very drastic type of, this natural fertilizer, it may be a good thing. I am not going to argue about it. But suddenly changing from regular fertilizer to natural, all the thing. It's something like, you have been regularly eating rice. One fine day, you stop eating rice at all. Sort of drastic, one-step solution type. And that has not helped them, actually. That has significantly reduced their crop production. So somebody from India only, I was told, advised. These type of advices are very good on paper. Also, it has to be done in a very, fashion in which your economy can absorb some of these ideas. So that is, and so obviously they don't have any major production or anything. Mainly they depend on tourism. That's one of their major revenue source, and that itself has got damaged because of all this. Earlier it used to be because of the LTTE war and other thing, and later unfortunately COVID, and then this economic crisis. So very few people who will have courage will go into Sri Lanka. But of course, as a tourist, you will enjoy because the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated so much. You will get goods and services at a very, very nominal dollar price, right? So the moral of Sri Lanka is very simple. It should be applicable to some of the Indian states also, state government. You don't borrow beyond your capacity, and it's true for even families. It's true even for companies, right? A family which is earning, let's say, 30,000 rupees per month, if it borrows to pay EMI of 50,000, how they can manage? Enthusiasm is there. Lender will be always interested in lending you if he thinks that he can grab something from you. So this is the basic premise. Of course, India is pitching in to help them, and IMF also may come forward. Pakistan may not be helped by IMF. That's what the report suggests. Pakistan is in the same thing. So we have to be very frugal in terms of our. Fortunately, we have a woman finance minister in India, and women are much more frugal than men in terms of running the household or running the thing. So she understands. She is very frugal. She has not over borrowed or anything. I would rather suggest many state government have women as finance minister. That is much better. They know how to what one can call handle funds, right? In a very I'm not telling it as a joke or anything. I'm being very serious. Women are very frugal in terms of dealing with funds. They are because they are more worried about the future also. They are the only ones who think about what will happen if something happens to my husband, if he dies, if something happens to somebody else, and all that thing. Anyhow, so that is the moral of the story is don't stretch yourself too much. Borrowed money.
So India also has some lessons from the Sri Lankan debt crisis, like a good
Yes.
case